Welcome to the Psychedelic Coach podcast. It's Ta, and I am so excited to introduce this episode. I was asked to be on a live panel on September 19th, 2024, by the Psychedelic Society of Texas. This panel was about sex and psychedelics, and it was moderated by Danielle Arbery Smith, who is an amazing sex and relationship coach. Ashley Carmen was on the panel with me, and Drea Aguilar was also on the panel. And it was at an amazing space called Art Us Co. And it's an art gallery in the Austin, Texas area near Arboretum. And this conversation went super deep, super fast, and we got into all the semantics around the altered states of sex and the altered states of psychedelics. And when you put those things together, what can happen? What are the pitfalls, maybe the danger spaces? What can happen when things get messy? How a person could go about exploring this or thinking about exploring this, what people could do on the front end, and all of these things. And I got to bring in a lot of the Condor approach concepts, and they were welcomed with open arms. The people on this panel are full of wisdom, and they all had some really amazing things to share, and I can't wait to get into this episode and share this with you. Please take a listen, sit back. It's about an hour. Sit back, relax, listen to this. And there's a bit of strong language occasionally. We're talking about sex. So if that's a thing for you and your kids, please be mindful. I'm excited. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Psychedelic Coach podcast. Let's go.
Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration. Leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Ta Cole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
Yeah, we're so excited to be here tonight. It's gonna be exciting. I feel like I was thinking on the way here, I remember saying maybe 10 years ago, if I could talk about sex every day and get paid for it, that would be my dream job. Here we are talking about sex. My name's Danielle. I'm a certified relationship and sex coach and host different events here, intimacy events in the community, and absolutely love talking about anything around intimacy, relationships, interpersonal dynamics. But I'm gonna let I'm gonna call you the team tonight. Is that okay? Great. Team works. Okay. Introduce yourselves and then we'll dive in.
Hello, hola familia, it's so great to be here. My name is Ashley Carmen. I am a licensed psychedelic psychotherapist, and let me explain what that means, because in some states that doesn't even exist. I am a marriage and family therapist, and I've studied within the specialty of psychedelics, having completed MAPS MDMA, assisted psychotherapy training, and I've also studied with the School of Consciousness Medicine, who teach the Mazatec lineage of psilocybin guiding. And through my practice, I've worked with girls and adolescents who are incarcerated and have suffered sexual traumas. I've also worked with women in recovery and residential rehab that have suffered childhood sexual abuse and also abuse as adults. And I am also the founder of Psychedelic Guide Network, which is a network of psychedelic guides that are engaging in peer-to-peer consultation. And our mission is to improve the integrity within psychedelic facilitation while also sustaining the sacred. I just got married on August 8th. I'm a wife. I'm a new dog mom. We rescued a dog on the way home. And thanks to everybody for all of your energy and effort in putting this event together tonight.
Peace, family. The sound I respond to is Ta. That's with a T at the beginning. I'm very grateful to see all of you here. I am the co-founder of the Condor Approach, the world's most comprehensive psychedelic-informed integration, certification, and coaching program. I practiced nursing. I've been a nurse for 32 years. I practiced nursing in New York City in emergency rooms all over New York for 25 years. So I know the in and outs of trauma and drama very well on the human body. And I have never seen anything as profound in transformation as psychedelics. I was completely anti. You can snap that up. I have never seen anything as profound as psychedelics, and I was completely anti-substance. I didn't have my first psychedelic experience until I was in my early 40s. and it completely flipped everything that I knew upside down. And so now my life's work is to support people in integrating their experiences in psychedelics. I facilitated psychedelic experiences for about 10 years, and I saw what was going on the inside, on the underground. I saw the harm that was happening. I saw things that were going upside down, and I saw people not having a space with intentional integration. So my focus is intentional integration, and that's what I'm here to talk about. My one-on-one coaching work is around intimacy, and intimacy with the self primarily, and then intimacy with the environment and people around, and systems, work, and money. All of that stuff is integrated. That's what I'm here for. Thanks, and I appreciate y'all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Drea Aguilar. Many people know me as Conscious Mother. I am first and foremost a storyteller and an artist. I had an incredible upbringing in El Teatro Campesino, where my mentor was Luis Valdez, and he taught me the art of telling stories to evoke action. And I'm coming from a more personal story of having lost my parents really early, and the journey of grief, loss, and becoming. I woke up at Burning Man 10 years ago, and from that space, I've learned to find my joy and say yes to my yes, and take ownership of my body. I am a ceremonialist. I am a group facilitator and work with a program called the Bridge Experience here based in Austin as an embodiment leadership coach. And we work with somatics, nervous system training, and I'm also a Reiki master, working with the energetics and the body to come back home.
I feel like just from those intros, I moved. I don't know about anybody else, but this is going to be an intimate conversation, and we're all going to be very real about our stories. And so that may touch or activate different parts of you, and just know that it's all welcome and that you're safe. Just know like you have full sovereignty over your body, over your experience, over your activations, and it's all welcome here. So we're going to start with the first question, which is, for those who are curious about exploring psychedelics, how do you recommend they begin, and where might be a good place to start?
It's a personal journey, and we all have different nervous systems that can hold different capacities for intensity. And where I started 20 years ago was cannabis, and maybe not considered so psychedelic, but for me, it is my connection to divine source. And it is so connective. And it enhances and creates this level of presence for any moment. So really, if anything you put your focus on, it is unapologetic about it. You want to eat those snacks over there? Go ahead. You want to have the best sex of your life? Oh my goodness. And I see some heads shaking over here. Yeah, oh, we're okay. So you feel me. Cannabis has this amazing way to open us up and do it in such a short amount of time. And if you're also curious about psychedelics, but you just want to go straight for the jugular, 5-MeO-DMT. And going for Bufo is a way to open ourselves and connect to oneness, and more giggles, so you understand it's the ultimate if club. And once you have a taste of the toad, then all other psychedelics become so connected to it, and it doesn't require a lot. So I'm a huge fan of the minimum effective dose, and that's why I say cannabis or 5-MeO-DMT.
Wow, quite the spectrum. I like that spectrum. It's a big one. Just so everybody knows, if you're new, it's a spectrum. Often there is a calling to psychedelics. And is there a plant? Is there a medicine? Is it a synthetic that's calling you into a deeper relationship with it? And after you become clear, really assess on the calling, what the psychedelic is, becoming clear on the intention. Is this a recreational exploration? Do you just want to go dance your heart out? Is this a healing exploration for a therapeutic experience? Is this a spiritual exploration? And once you become clear on the intention behind the calling of the medicine, then finding a facilitator that is best suited for you, whether that be a therapist or a coach or a shaman or a page or a self-identified shaman or a church experience, a group experience. I think there's really layers to unpack when exploring the different types of psychedelic experiences and slowing down and really connecting in with where is that intuitive calling coming from and getting clear on that and letting that guide your direction.
I pass, no. You are a psychedelic experience. Psychedelic, the whole phrase psychedelic came from mind manifesting. And for me, doing work on the front end before you even touch a substance is tremendously important, okay, on the front end. The one thing that I teach at my certification and my trainings is that you know everything you need to know, but you have been taught how to meticulously and intricately talk yourself out of it. And going to psychedelics for answers when the answers are inside of you is a questionable space. Psychedelics can support you in seeing those answers clearly. But when you do the front end, when you do an intake on yourself, when you ask yourself, why am I here? What am I doing? What do I like? What do I dislike? What do I love? What do I adhere to? What are the rules in my life? Am I people pleasing? Am I pleasing myself? Am I in pleasure, out of pleasure? Once you have all of this stuff in front of you, then you have stuff to play with that you can offer to a facilitator. Hey, listen, these are the things I'm grappling with. So if this stuff comes up in my experience, would I be able to be supported? Even if you're tripping with a friend. Hey, listen, this is something I'm grappling with. If we're gonna go in and this comes up, would you be able to swing me back around to my intention? Doing an inventory on yourself on the front end before considering any substance would be my primary place for you to begin.
I love that. And to speak to that, Ta, I want to ask another question, follow up. So are you saying that people should go in, before even starting with psychedelics, that they should have an awareness of self? And if so, how can someone that maybe isn't connected to their bodies because societal norms of disconnection from feeling, disconnection from our bodies, from porn, all these different addictions that we've had, how can someone that may be on the precipice of awareness, what be a good starting point before even getting to psychedelics?
There's, like I'm saying, asking yourself these questions. If porn is a thing in your life, right? And, all right, cool, you're watching porn at nighttime. Have you had a relationship with yourself and porn? What is porn to me? What does it render me? What is it doing for me? Am I hiding? Is there someone I can talk to about it? Am I safe with porn, right? And these are questions that you ask yourself. You ask yourself all of these questions, and you start to build a relationship with yourself and start to see when you actually dissociate. You can see how many people here have dissociative tendencies? I know I do. When I get afraid, I dissociate, right? And so knowing when you dissociate, what's coming on? How does that build up? This is information that you can actually feed your environment so that your environment can give you feedback. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of you should. It's a matter of you have an opportunity to do this. By this conversation right here, you now know, you've always known that you can have more awareness. Now you can give yourself permission because there's somebody actually bringing it to your attention, shining a little bit of light on it. So yeah, that makes plenty of sense. How many people are like, oh, that makes plenty of sense? It makes plenty of sense. You knew it already. I'm just reminding you, okay? And so that's what psychedelics can do. And so I'm inviting you into that space.
Just wanted to add, there's also a lot of very simple practices like meditation, journaling, things that you can do to uncover and develop a bigger awareness within yourself. Vipassana, all of these things are also available before psychedelics. It can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
And absolutely breath work as you're creating your own DMT in your own system.
Yeah, something that came to mind was when I just start working with a client, and naturally a lot of people are just disconnected. And a practice that I have people do in the beginning is set an alarm on your phone to check in 3 times a day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, hand on my heart, how am I doing? What's going on? Super basic, super easy. Spend 3 minutes with yourself, and it starts to teach yourself connection to self. What's my intuition saying? What's my body saying? What's my heart saying? What's my inner child saying? So just starting a simple practice makes a world of difference. Okay, next question. Why would people want to combine psychedelics and sex?
Ta, okay. Hi. Why would people, or why would I want to combine psychedelics and sex? So from a practical space, when we get into psychedelic spaces, we become what we call neuroplastic. And that gives us an option to perceive things in ways that we may not have been perceiving them because of past programming. So if I'm looking to foster a connection with somebody and let go of my old dramas and traumas around sexuality, around being touched a certain way, around traumas, this is something where through dialogue and sexuality and psychedelics can open up a whole new realm of dropping old traumas. Maybe I have traumas around female bodies, right? Maybe I was abused by a female body and I'm having erectile dysfunction in that situation. I could speak to the person that I'm going to have this experience with and let them know what's going on and talk about the reprogramming and see what happens when this person touches me. And we can actually be in a play space around that. So the reprogramming of the body around newness when it comes to sexuality is an amazing space to explore with psychedelics with great intention and dialogue beforehand. So that would be a place that why people, me, would want to explore sex and psychedelics.
Personally, for me, it starts with me and getting intimate with myself. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but if you're consuming mushrooms and you end up in the bathroom and you're staring at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, I love you so much. Thank you for being here. And I remember that moment being the breaking point of feeling so constricted and tight in my body and unsafe almost all the time, disassociative, and existing out here and not here. And so I've developed this relationship with myself and creating that dialogue with myself. How do you want to be touched? What's it like when it feels like this? And then being in spaces and places where I can then connect to others. I just came back from Burning Man. I have a proud sex story that I want to share. I met someone last year, and it took a year to create that safety with this man. And we had an incredible friendship during this week of Burning Man. And on my last day, we got to go to a John Wineland intimacy workshop, and it was about sub-dom. And as friends, we were practicing, and it just got heated. And this connection and magnetism then developed. And it ended, my last night there, in a beautiful connection of shibari, which is Japanese rope tying. And what that did for me was to create a level of intimacy with another person and fully surrender myself and say, yes, I consent to you and trusting you to hold me in this way where I have no control. And that has been the most healing part of my own sexual revolution, evolution of self that I've ever had. And it's been the way that in the last 2.5 weeks of coming back, how it served me in all areas of my life has been incredible.
Bravo. Thanks for that story. I really love all of the shares here around the intellectual and the dialoguing and what can be reconstructed and the energetics in the space when we combine sex and psychedelics. And I just want to add the somatic aspects of sex and psychedelics. When we're in a psychedelic space, our sensations are heightened. We are highly sensitive to sensations, and sex, when radically present, is extremely enjoyable if you can truly be present with the sensations that you're experiencing. Yeah, they really enhance the senses, and it's a great experience.
It can be.
I want to follow up on that, Ashley. We spoke prior of just like how there can be this almost false intimacy created. Let's say you're going to a party and people are taking MDMA or psychedelic or psilocybin or whatever it may be, and they have this heart-opening experience and they think they're in love at the end of it. How do you recommend people to then integrate from something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to bring in the word projections here. When we're in a psychedelic space, we're opening up parts of ourselves and often will and can project onto others around us, whether it be a facilitator or a guide or somebody else that's in the space. And I think it's really important to sit down and look at that projection to really know it for yourself and understand that this projection it's for you to explore, it's for you to experience, and it's great that it facilitates a lot of connection, and it's great that we're in these really connected spaces with others, but when something goes outside or beyond the psychedelic experience, to integrate it is important, and journaling about it, really meditating on it, and I think just following the thread. What is it about that person maybe that we projected onto? And what's there for us to explore more. And that discernment is really big. It's a skill to cultivate, is to discern and to know when, is this real? Is this actually happening? Or is this something, an illusion that I've created or a projection that I've manifested onto somebody else? And it's for me to hold and to work with myself versus continue and perpetuate or explore, follow up on it with the other person.
Ooh, can I compound?
Yes, please.
That was awesome. I love being on stage with Ashley. We've had some adventures, fam. Oh my gosh. In the space of integration and the speak about sex, there's something that I learned through Tantra communities, through a lot of BDSM communities, is something called RBDSM. Relationships, desires, right? Boundaries, sexually transmitted infections, and the meaning of the circumstance. And so if you're not asking about those things before you go into these circumstances, you can be setting yourself up for a whole lot of mess. Especially when empathogenic substances like MDMA, MDA, 2CB, the heart opener spaces, put us into a heightened space to perceive affection, to be affectionate. And then people who haven't had a lot of affection in their life, who are experiencing affection maybe for the first time or for the most enhanced time they've ever had, may apply the meaning that this means I'm in love and this person is in love with me. And since you're in a very heightened neuroplastic space, you may iron that into your brain pattern that this person is the person that I love. And this is what I want y'all to be really mindful of. When you're in these spaces and you get into a very heightened psychedelic space and a heightened physiological sex space, this enhances the possibility of something being neuroplastic. So you can anchor yourself to someone's voice, you can anchor yourself to someone's pheromone complex, you can anchor yourself into somebody's visual space, right? How they look. And that can be something that you etch into your nervous system. And so I invite you to be very mindful and gentle with yourself about having an intention of play, an intention of whatever you're going in to have this with, and be mindful of what you create meaning out of. That's just what I wanted to add.
What comes up for me is to consider what state I am in prior to consumption. And if I'm in a low state or a dense place, it would be very easy for me to get confused. And when I'm in an empowered state, that I'd have that capacity to have those conversations and those boundaries and that understanding of what it actually is in that moment, and taking that after the experience and having the dialogue with that person and being open and honest and real with one another, and that invitation for authenticity.
I love that. And I think that leads me into my next question, which is around safety. For individuals who may not have a clear sense of what safety feels like, how can they start to conceptualize and identify what safety might look like for them during a psychedelic experience?
And is that safety like a guided experience or a recreational journey? There's a lot of different ways that I conceptualize safety depending on the context.
I would say guided.
A guided experience. How can we engage in safety, become more safe, harm reduction? When working with the psychedelic guide, I would become really curious about their code of ethics. I would ask them if they have a code of ethics. I would talk to them about their code of ethics. I would also become curious if there's an informed consent, which I think is not actually that common. It tends to be a little bit more clinical, but is a best practice, becoming informed on what you are consenting to. And often in an informed consent, you'll find out what modalities are being used by the guide or the practitioner. So is touch involved? What kind of touch? Is it Reiki? Is it nurturing touch? The preventative measures, the screening tools, asking the questions, knowing what questions to ask a psychedelic guide or facilitator is incredibly important in your safety. I'd also say it's really important for you to become aware of what you need in the space. And while psychedelic guides or facilitators may have a certain container that they're putting you in, what is it that you're comfortable with? Do you like touch? Do you want touch? And knowing that you can always withdraw consent no matter what. No matter what the situation, no matter what's happening, and also remembering that your boundaries and the agreement set before the altered state is non-negotiable. Oftentimes we get into an altered state, things become really loose, I'm feeling really good, maybe I might want some touch on my upper thigh, I might be into it, but if that was not an agreement or something explicitly stated before your psychedelic experience, knowing that it's a non-negotiable while in this state.
I love me some Ashley. Such a fan. I'm a fan of everybody up here, I'm saying. Safety is a big deal for me, so much to the fact that a half day of my 3-day training is talking about safety. And in the experiences that I've had with psychedelics, most people have no idea what safety means. I'll ask 10 different people and they'll say something completely different. And safety is not something that can be made for you. It's something that can be recognized within yourself. So I can provide an environment for you to be safe in that is as optimal as possible, but you overall are the person who's the captain of your ship of safety. And so the context that we came up was, safety is freedom from hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, and pain. We call those the 7 attributes of violence, because anything that is violent disrupts you from being whole. So if you know what disrupts your wholeness, you know where the holes in your safety are. So hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, pain. Now, we have safety in regards to money and finances. We have safety in regards to our bodies and physical touch. We have safety in regards to our relationships. We have safety in regards to our identities and our self-esteem. There's all these different things. Safety in regards to our children and our family members. There's all these different things that can be subjected to violence. And violence can come in a whole lot of different ways. I can tell you that your shoes are ugly, and that may get you in, right? It's a form of violence. If you feel like your shoes are beautiful and wonderful and I tell you your shoes are ugly, you may start to question yourself. If they think my shoes are ugly, are they? What's wrong with my thought process? That's violence, and it can come in very subtle ways. And so this is the space I invite you into. If we were talking about safety, it's knowing what safety is for you as an individual. Does the environment support you being safe? Does the facilitator, the people around you, support you in your idea of what safety is, not what their idea of safety is? Any facilitators in here, anybody that's a coach, stop telling people you're safe, because they may not feel that inside. And they may start to question themselves. If I don't feel safe and they're telling me I'm safe, then, and I see this all the time in sexual situations when people have the tendency to people please and fawn, which is a result of abandonment wounds, okay? And this is, oh no, you're safe, and then it's, oh my gosh, this person touched me and I totally didn't feel safe, but I let them do it because they told me I was safe. And you outsourced your authority to somebody else. Primarily is knowing those 7 attributes: hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, pain. How do they work for you? Doing like Ashley said, and vetting your facilitator. Vet your facilitator. We have a document called Red Flags, which is based on checking in on facilitators to see if this is a person that's absolute. We have red flags, yellow flags, and green flags. And I have a free document. I can tell all of y'all about it later on, that you can download this and go look for safety. So.
No.
love that. Thank you, guys. Okay, Ashley, from your perspective, how can exploring altered states with psychedelics impact one's experience of pleasure and sexuality within themselves or with a partner?
Psychedelics are really great tools for breaking through the concrete, for breaking through the cognitive structures, the cognitive patterning, the narratives on repeat, all of the intellectual day-to-day, that space, the superficial space that's on the surface, the topical that we find a lot of comfort in and typically exists in a day-to-day. And psychedelics really allow a deep dive into deep feeling, a deep dive into intimacy with yourself. To be cliche, into me I see. I'm becoming aware of my deep feeling, of my feeling world, and getting to know the deeper inner workings of what's going on behind the narratives, behind the stories. And so it's a real beautiful experience to get to know yourself on a deeper level, to get to understand, to facilitate a deeper knowing. It's also incredibly intimate. I really have I'm in like a clinical space, and it's mental health and can be very treatment oriented. I have a very spiritual relationship with psychedelics as well. And that experience of oneness, that experience of knowing that you are the divine, that the divine lives within you, is incredibly intimate. And when you have access to that deep feeling state, we become aware of it, and we can then share it with others. And when you have a couple, for example, how two people can access pleasure and intimacy through psychedelics, when they can both meet each other in deep feeling, when they can facilitate connection and intimacy by revealing themselves in deep feeling, that is where pleasure comes from, and pleasure is enhanced and pleasure is increased, and how psychedelics can facilitate that.
Okay, Drea, this one's for you.
Okay.
How can psychedelic experiences potentially support the process of rehabilitation and healing from past traumas, especially for those who feel disconnected from their bodies or emotions?
I love this question because it is my own journey. And how psychedelics has facilitated that level of healing for me is breaking down the walls and opening myself up to the remembrance of how powerful we are and why we're here. And there has been a lot of trauma that has happened to this vessel and this body. And over the years, again, I mentioned the constriction and the tightness and the inability to allow myself to feel and be seen in that vulnerability. Psychedelics has given me permission to feel again and be this ultimate representation of humanity and be proud that I am this feeling body and I have had these experiences. I've had my whole life be reviewed. And in every instance, every part of my life where I had the teacher or the trauma or the triumph, it showed me that it was all divinely orchestrated and part of the plan to sit here and speak to y'all because I get to share my story and inspire one person in this room to heal themselves. And so that connection to my body has, it was never safe to be the feeler in my home. And so I hid, and I did the dance, and I people pleased. And once I've learned that it was okay to be me, I came back home. And then in that feeling of home, I released 25 pounds, and I began to see the beauty that is me, and then my face began to change, and my age started to reverse. And so it's been this incredible reflection of the deep work of being open and available to change and see that it's not so scary. It's okay, I can take that leap. And psychedelics gives you that permission slip to take that big jump off the cliff into the unknown to see what's available.
Beautiful. I feel like I could listen to you all day. I was like, I'm drawn in. I'm going to keep listening. Does anybody else feel that way about Drea's stories? While you were talking, it was reminding me of this altered state that I was in shortly after I got married. I was maybe 21 and saved myself to have sex till I was married. I'd never been on psychedelics. It's the most altered state was either through the Holy Spirit or through sex. And can I get an amen? And thank you. Hallelujah. And I was having this sexual experience right after I had my son, and I was like 21. And all of a sudden I started having these visuals of trauma that I had shut down from when I was 9 years old. And the beauty of having safety and partnership and allowing yourself to get to an altered state and then being able to heal from there. And so I was laying next to him, I was crying. I was like, I don't know what happened, but this is all coming up. And he just laid with me and held space. And yeah, it's just the beautiful thing that opens to you when you are in that altered state. It's not necessarily, it has to be through medicine, but it can be through meditation. I feel like we just had that experience when we just set an intention in the other room. I was like, oh my goodness. So just knowing that you can get there through breathing, through intimacy, even if it's not penetration, but just through eye gazing or holding someone's hand, that in safety, so much healing can come through that. Thank you for reminding me of my story. Okay, next question. How can partners communicate and set boundaries, like using a safe word, to ensure a shared sense of safety during a psychedelic experience?
Oh, boundaries. I actually just put a course out about boundaries. And the discussion on boundaries is the primary space, understanding that there's a difference between a boundary and a request. I can tell you to get away from me, that's a request. I can ask you to get away from me, that's a request. Somebody can still walk right through that. But if I say, if you come over here and you come next to me, I'm gonna walk away or I'm gonna hit you, there's a consequence, okay? And so understanding that there is a consequence that is put forth, that is an agreement or a contract here. You have a contract with yourself to uphold your own boundary. Nobody can walk through a very well-defined and very strategically created boundary. And when you have these boundaries set up with another person that you're going to be intimate with, that person can actually honor it because they know what the consequence of moving into your boundary space is. So there's a threshold where you start to get activated. And then there's a very high limit to where you spill into something different. And that something different is where you place the boundary. If it gets to this far, then this has to happen. But if you don't have that contingency, if you don't have that thing set up, then another person can walk right through it. Oh, I don't like to be touched like that. Okay, I'll touch you anyway. But if it's like, hey, if you touch me this way, I'm done, I'm out of here. If you touch me like this, I'm gonna move your hand. If you touch me like this, I'm gonna kick you. That's a boundary. And so being able to set these things up on the front end, like I said at the very beginning of this conversation, work on the front end with your partner is extremely important. And that means before you start taking psychedelics into your body, you have a conversation around what your boundaries are. And before you have a conversation with another person, you have a conversation with yourself. What are my boundaries? RBDSM, it's in the same things I was talking about before. So that's where I would start with the partner circumstance.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty simple. I think you treat psychedelic experience and psychedelic container with your partner, with your close friends, similar to how you would approach a situation with a brand new person or a guide in the room. You set up the container, you set up the agreements, you set up the boundaries, and everything's discussed. And to be over explicit is a best practice in that case.
I love that. Okay, this leads me.
I got one more thing.
Yes.
Courage. Have the courage to speak your truth. If you don't have the courage to speak your truth, nobody will know what your boundaries are.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
For couples who have undergone a psychedelic experience and find that they've grown or changed in different ways, which I think happens to most people after a powerful experience with psychedelics, how can they reconnect and almost rebuild intimacy as this new evolved version of themselves? Don't break up within the first week afterwards.
Yeah, there's a good rule of thumb that we wait 2 months before making any large decisions. But in your question, it's presumed that they should be returning to intimacy. And so I think with psychedelic experiences, there's expansion, a lot of growth, a lot of uncovering, a lot of authenticity coming through. People shift, people change. And so it's common for people and couples actually to go in separate directions as they're getting closer to a path of their true self, and there's a vibration that's no longer reverberating, and we're at different frequencies now. We're on different paths. One person is exploring psychedelics, one person isn't, or we've done psychedelics and we're just in different places. And so the truth may not always be the truth, however you want to define that, may not always be enjoyable or pleasurable. And so that's what comes up for me immediately. Is there a requirement to return to that intimacy, but also open to other thoughts about how to return to intimacy if there's a split after a psychedelic experience?
It comes back to authenticity and speaking that truth. And then also, here it is, giving space. Giving each other permission to be in your own integration and then come back together. And it might take 2 months. And definitely do not break up immediately. It's going to only create more pain. And yeah, just be your own individual. I think when it comes to me and being in a couple, which hasn't happened for a while, is I want to fix or save and be the hero, when actually it's let me be in my own experience and I'll let you have your own.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to the importance of integration and support when you're going through such a big experience.
So how deep down a rabbit hole do you want to go? Sure. With this question, okay, with intimacy, there are 3 parts to an intimate situation with 2 people. There's person A, person B, and then there's the relationship structure. Okay? And so if we build a relationship structure and then person A goes for a psychedelic experience, the agreements that they may have on a physiological level with that relationship structure may have changed. And so if there's no throughput to the other person, how they relate to the relationship may now be threatened by this person's growth. And so that threat can be violent to the relationship structure and to the other person in the relationship structure. Does this make sense? Okay, and so when you have that type of dynamic, having a discussion that, hey, listen, I'm going for a psychedelic experience, I may come back a little different. Is there going to be malleability for my differences here? Okay, and this is a really important circumstance that a lot of people are not considering. When we talk about trauma, it's not just trauma to the people, it's trauma to the relationship. And if the relationship becomes traumatized, the person that's on the other side of the relationship may feel frightened and threatened by the new person. Okay, and so that can be a challenging space if there's no malleability to grow into a new space. Me and my partner, we get married every year. We just got married again on September 3rd. Thank you. We do not have anniversaries. We get married every year. We sit down, poster boards on the floor. What worked for you? What worked for me? What didn't work? What do we want to create? Because we know as we are growing as individuals that if we don't create malleability into the relationship structure and we serve a relationship structure from 5 years ago, meanwhile I'm growing into something new, it's violent. Okay? And so this is the thing with sexuality. If you're with a partner, they go in, they have psychedelics, they start to get into the somatic space that she's talking about, and then maybe your partner's hips are moving a little different during sex, and it's, who the fuck is this? Who the fuck is this? Where did this come from? What were you doing? And you start making up narratives and all of this stuff. I've seen it happen, and I've had to support people through this type of dynamic. And so these are the things that I invite consideration space for with relationships and intimacy is, are you allowing for malleability and growth? And if you're in a partnership and you're not letting your partner know that you're growing into a different space, you may be creating shadow work. That's it. I asked you if you wanted to go down the rabbit hole.
That was good. Juicy. I just wanted to share that my beloved, my husband, and we do our personal development together. So it may not always be together sitting in the same ayahuasca circle, but if he does ayahuasca, then I go do another form of personal development. So we're just making sure that we're both growing parallel with each other.
I love that. Drea?
It goes outside of the psychedelic space, and this does happen with a lot of the clients that I do work with, especially women on their path of empowerment and feeling like their partner, their husband, their boyfriend can't get on board, they're not willing to change. And so I preface that I'm going to be enemy number 1 for them. And that conversation happens in the beginning. Change is happening. Can you be on my side and on my team? It's going to get a little messy. It's going to get a little freaky. And are you willing to be on this ride with me? And if you're not, that's okay. You have to already mourn what the relationship was so that you can grow into a new one. Yeah, allow it to die. Have a funeral. Let the past be the past and invite them in on the journey.
I love that. Okay, last question, because it just came up while you guys were talking, was, okay, so we're talking a lot about couples. What about people that are single and they have this mind-blowing experience and they come back from, let's say, a ceremony and they're like, who the fuck am I now? And they look in the mirror. I love you, but I don't know who you are. And it's scary. Your whole world might feel like it's turned upside down. You're like, what is my purpose? Who am I now? What am I supposed to do with my life? All these questions. And so how would you say, how can someone hold themselves through that transformation? And maybe even how long do you think it would last?
All your life.
Forever. Trust, faith, surrender. It's all divine. It's all perfect. The mind is unsure. The mind does not know. The mind will constantly doubt and question and always look for something to worry over or to cause anxiety over, to feel depressed over, depending on what your tendencies are. And psychedelics are really beautiful in providing a level of faith and surrender so that anything that comes up, if you're going through a transformational experience, if you don't recognize yourself anymore, if you're unsure why you just lost your job or got in this huge fight, and knowing that it's all divine, it's all part of your blueprint, it's all part of the plan. And when you can really connect to that and know that, not just intellectually understand and conceptualize that, but truly know it in your being, everything else wipes away. Everything else falls off, all the doubt, the worry, the concern. So I would invite them back into their practice of faith and trust and surrender.
I tell this to all my students. Stop the lone wolf shit. Stop the lone wolf shit. Don't do it by yourself. Don't just look in the mirror and say, what am I going to do? Talk to somebody about it. Please, your environment, you are your environment. And you can get your environment to support you. And all the people around you are your environment. Get your environment to support you. Get intimate with your environment. A deep, intricate connection, not surface level. Hey, listen, this is coming up for me. I had a psychedelic experience and I feel like I'm new. When I had my first psychedelic experience, I was like, who am I? Just who the fuck am I? What is going on here? I had a half a dose of sass, like 50 milligrams. 50 milligrams of sass, and I was on my ass, terrified. You're talking about somebody who had control issues? I had control issues, didn't even know it. But that was my issue. I was lying to everybody and everything to control the situation and control how people saw me. And when I had that experience, I let go of all of that control. And so I don't need to be in control of everybody else. Who the fuck am I? What am I? What am I doing? And I didn't say shit to anybody. And Cole was like, Cole is my wife. And she was like, what's going on? I'm like, nothing. And then it got to a point about a week and a half after that first ceremony where I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm terrified. And so she took me and I sat with the facilitator and they helped me to integrate. And that's how I learned about integration. I had some real solid folks that helped me integrate all the meanings that I had for myself, the meanings that I was making, and to let go of all of that stuff and to just be in flow. And so in that space, I had the environment support me in my flow and have bumpers for me to bump around in. And so as I told more people about what was going on with me, and I asked, could you support me in this? They were like, fuck yeah, I'll support you, I got you. And Cole was like, I got you. And for the first time in my life, I didn't play lone wolf. I let the environment hold me. And this is something that I invite y'all to do, y'all. Let go of that lone wolf shit. That comes from abandonment wounds. I'm afraid that people are not gonna come back and all that other stuff. I let go of my abandonment wounds and I started manipulating and using my environment without being manipulative, if you get my meaning. You feel me? That's what I would add to that.
When people come to me and they say, I don't know who I am anymore, what just happened? I say, yes, great. you have no idea who you are. And can you shift your approach? Because we're such meaning makers and we want to get into the cerebral and have all the answers. When what I found really shifted for me is to connect to my joy, connect to the fun of, great, I don't know who I am. This is a blank canvas, meaning I can create anything I desire in this moment. So what do I choose? I choose myself. And what does that mean? I don't know. Let's go find out, right? Let's go fuck around and find out. I think there's someone around here with that funk around shirt, and it's so perfect. Have fun. This life, this human experience, is a cosmic joke. And when we can approach it differently with that sense of joy medicine, then everything shifts and it becomes easy. And I tell this to all my clients who tell me all the time, this work is so hard. It's just so hard. I'm like, what if you just shifted your perspective and told yourself and do the reps with the malleability of this neuroplasticity that you just developed in your mind to program yourself that this can be easy, and then see what happens.
Who here has had an experience like that where you're like, who the fuck am I now? Yeah, okay. You're in a good group of people, and there's community here, and Caitlin has a beautiful community and integration circles. So if you need community and you want to let go of the lone wolf, please join her programs. I want to open the mic for a couple of questions. A hand went out in the back.
Thank you guys for sharing your wisdom. I had 2 questions. First of all, if a couple is experimenting with this, do you recommend that both are on something, or that one should be off and one is on so that one can guide or ground the other person? Because that leads into question number 2. You guys are talking about the potential for healing, but bad trips are a thing. What would happen if 2 people are being intimate and one or both of them, it goes, what the fuck then, right? So I'm sure maybe you guys can share a story or advice about like how to do it practically, and then what happens when the shit hits the fan, basically.
Great question. Thank you. This is a loaded question, and there's a lot of different avenues you can go down. My invitation is always, if 2 people are going to be exploring psychedelics and sexuality, what are both of their experiences with psychedelics? What are both of their experiences with sexuality? Because if you mix those 2 things around and you mix the substances in different spaces, there's a frequency tone that people get into when they're having sex. Sex is already an altered space where in the male body, you have this increase in testosterone, you have an increase in dopamine, you have an increase in serotonin and oxytocin. In the female body, you have this increase in estrogen, progesterone, increase of serotonin, and an increase of dopamine and other hormones as well, right? You have other catecholamines that are going, and they all vibrate at a particular tone, okay? And then you add psychedelics to the mix, and it changes the vibrational tone of both of those people. And so if you have one person going this way and another person going this way, or one person is not in the expanded space and the other person is, you can cause a lot of frequency energetic calamity. And if those people don't know how to navigate a psychedelic substance, it can cause some challenges. And I've seen people that are like, I'm in the psychedelic space, man, my dick can't get hard. And because they don't know how to navigate the space. And so my recommendation is always with both people, same substance, start off very small, and then move incrementally into different spaces in different occurrences. I wouldn't be like, okay, I'm gonna start with 1/2 gram of mushrooms, and then I'm gonna add this MDMA, and then I'm gonna go into LSD in one experience. Let's titrate, get used to the substance together, because a person may have one person may not vibe well with mushrooms, and the other person will. And getting yourself into a position where you have an on-ramp is an awesome place, and you don't have to worry about the calamity happening because you're on-ramping each other into that space. Intimacy is not something that's built in a snap. It's something that's built over a gradient of time. And so the tolerance of the substances with the sexuality, my invitation is to slowly on-ramp, and you don't have to worry about calamity.
Another question?
Does that help? Okay.
What happens if something actually, like if one partner does start flipping out?
Okay, if one person starts flipping out,
Have a guide there.
yeah, you could have a guide there. If it's a couple's journey or something like that. There are situations like that, but in a space where a person is could you give her the mic real quick? Give them the mic. I don't know. I don't want to mess your pronouns up. What would be an example of this calamity?
Like a feeling of lack of safety, what we were speaking about before, if one person's freaking out or...
Perfect.
And the other one's trying to comfort them. And, okay.
Perfect.
I like what you said before, don't tell the other person they're safe when they're not. But then that person's also high. So the person who's supposed to be comforting you is themselves high.
No,
and they could spiral, I would imagine. I've never done it, that's why I'm asking. I'm like,
perfect.
What to do?
No, this is perfect. So having to comfort another person is your own shit. Okay? Did the person ask you for comfort? Are you going to allow this person to wig out? How come people can't wig out in a psychedelic experience? If somebody is in their feelings and something's coming up, hey, listen, I'm noticing that you're elevating. Are you safe right now? Do you need anything? Asking more powerful questions. Do you need space? Is it okay if I just witness you? Do you want to be witnessed? Do you want to be alone? Asking this person these questions offers them sovereignty in their space. Stop rescuing people. Okay? That's my number one thing. Stop rescuing people from their psychedelic experiences. If they're not breaking shit or putting their head through a wall or something like that, then there's nothing that you need to do. Why do you need to do something?
If you're the one having the thing and they're not comforting you and you want it to be comforted?
Then how come you haven't asked for comfort? Do you need comfort? Do you want something here? And even if you say, do you need comfort, that's your projection. That's you saying, oh, this person looks uncomfortable. What do you need? What do you want? Is this experience what you want to be having? No. Okay, what would you like to have? I'd like to be smiling. What would make you smile right now? A picture of my child. Okay, is it in your phone? Is it in a photo album? What do you need? You keep asking questions and give them space to be in their full expression. Because psychedelics and emotions, those two things are never convenient. So you're always going to get inconvenienced. The thing is, can you offer the space for this person to be safe? Hey, listen, I noticed that some stuff's going on. I want to make sure that you're not in danger. Fuck you. Blah, blah, blah. Cool. Are you in danger? No. All right, cool. You want me to let you have this? Yeah. Cool. Do you need anything? No. Cool. If you're doing anything, I'll be sitting over here and just witness. Holding space, okay? And if you want to write this down, okay, because this phrase gets used a lot in psychedelics. Holding space is the skilled act of witnessing another person in their experience of themselves. It's a skill. It's not something, oh, I'm just going to hold space. You have to be skilled at witnessing another person in their experience of themselves. And if you are a partner, an intimate partner, and you can't witness your partner in all of their flavors, that's your shit. Does that make sense? Is this helpful?
Can I add?
Cool.
Can I add something? Mm-hmm. I love that. And great tools and techniques and questions, and sometimes can be hard to intellectualize and really go into that space and know the questions to ask if you're in a 120 milligram MDMA SAS experience. And I just wanted to normalize having a couples therapist or having a guide that works with couples, because if you have somebody that's new to the medicine, repressed memories can come up. And I have seen couples journeys and couples sessions with the intention of connecting and having these tough discussions get hijacked because one of the partners of the couple had a repressed memory come up and they really required a lot of extra attention and care and holding. And it is very powerful to be able to hold space for your partner, and there's a lot of power in that, but just bringing in another element and really normalizing having experience with that medicine first before you venture into a couple's space. And if you are new to the medicine, possibly having a third party guide, therapist, coach, sitter, whoever it is that you identify and are comfortable with, in the event that something does go incredibly south.
Next question.
I'm curious for all four of you, what substances you have found most personally impactful in the context of sex, like actually engaging with a partner, which ones you found to be the most impactful for you at enhancing that experience, and just all of it. And so really, another less professional way is, what are your favorite substances to have sex on? And then, which is really what I want to know. And then the second question is, and it might be the same answer, what do you recommend people start with if they have some experience with psychedelics? But what would you recommend people, what feels like the safest starting point for people to engage sexually when it comes to the specific substance? Both of those I'm curious about.
Okay, I'll do it. Like I said in the beginning, I love cannabis, and it's so low entry, low commitment, and low risk, and how much presence that it makes you available for, and the feeling sense, and then being able to tap in and open your third eye, so then you have this like wild connection with God as well. And I also enjoy psilocybin and MDMA. My favorite, hippie flipping, so much fun, and at a low dose. Yeah.
What is hippie flipping?
Hippie flipping is psilocybin with MDMA. And SAS can definitely be a replacement if you don't want to go chemical and you want to stay organic.
Sassafras. So have you heard of MDA? MDA, that's SAS. MDA, so there's methylene dioxymethamphetamine, which is MDMA, and then there's methylene dioxyamphetamine. Okay, and so there's two different, MDMA has to burn off a methyl component to get to become MDA. So MDMA is more love outward, and MDA is more love inward, from my experience of it. Yeah, you're welcome. Of course, that's what we're here for. Favorite substance to have sex on? Mushrooms, by far. B+ strain. Ugh. Smooth on-ramp, smooth off-ramp. Lemon tech for somewhere between 10 minutes and 60 minutes. Put lemon in it, crush it up, and go in. And the drop-in phase, when you go in, is where you have all the body sensations. It's so yummy. That's the thing. Please touch me. Are you kidding me? Consensual, but I'm begging you to touch me. That's consent. Somebody, please touch me. My wife's always, nah, I'm not Ty. You go touch him. I don't want to be touched. So, no. But as far as substances go, what is the substance that you resonate with, right? If I'm telling you mushrooms is wonderful and MDMA is your jam, trust yourself. Trust yourself, family. Okay? And get familiar, like Ashley was saying so profoundly, get familiar with the substances first and then move into that space. But mushrooms is my jam. I love navigating that space. And so sex with mushrooms and how it affects my body is awesome. But I know how to navigate that, and so does my wife. And so we can volley back and forth in that space. We usually start off with really low dose and then move into a higher space if we want to. And we use it as an adjunct to what's going on.
I would say mushrooms. Just a microdose or a little bit more than a microdose just brings enhancing and a deeper sense of myself, where I can communicate like all of these conversations we've been having tonight, what I want, what I don't want, just opens me up to a greater intimacy with self, which then obviously allows for a greater intimacy with a partner. But if I was honest, I prefer being sober when I'm having sex. I love sex.
Great. I also prefer to be sober, but when asked with this question and in a responsible, intentional space with my beloved, where all of the consensual boundaries are set up and agreements are clear, everything we've talked about on this panel, I enjoy a stack of MDA, a little bit of ketamine, and I may lose some of you here, but we also include whippets, which is a full body orgasm. And I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, that's all I got.
That's juicy. Okay. I think we probably have time for one more question. Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add something to that. With substances, I love to have my sexual situations completely sober, but there are certain body circumstances where there are inhibitory things that have happened from childhood and from sexual traumas. And so being able to have a space where the default mode network gets deactivated, she can access spaces in her body and we can actively work together to reprogram those spaces. So as much as I love to be in a sober sex space, there are certain things that we work on together to get her body to soften so that she can actually experience what she wants to experience that has been etched in from traumatic circumstances. So I just wanted to say that knowing how to ride a nervous system and all the things that I do from nursing has helped me to support some different spaces with psychedelics.
Lovely.
And that just shows the safety you guys have established in your relationship. So that's beautiful. Okay, we have time for one more question. Yes, right here with the red dress.
Can I ask a question that doesn't have to do with sex?
You can ask whatever you want.
Does have psychedelics?
Yes.
I was wondering your guys' opinion. If someone consistently has anxiety with a specific substance, do you think that means that there's a part of themselves that they're afraid to face that that substance brings up? Or do you think it's possible that that substance just doesn't work with them?
I feel like that's me and cannabis, me and Santa Maria. Santa Maria brings up a whole lot of anxiety for me, and there's a part of me that's, I just don't like it, it's not a medicine for me, and I can be at peace with that. And there's another part of me that's where the work is, and that's what I'm being invited into, is that anxious space, and there's gold there for me. And I'm trusting myself to know when that timing is, when I'm ready to work with that medicine and I get the calling to step into it. And please believe I get a lot of invites for Santa Maria around my house. And the answer is just no right now, and I'm okay with that. And so I'm open to it being, which may be the case for you or not. I love how we're inviting everybody back into themselves to really connect and find the answer for yourself. There may be work there for you, there may be gold there for you, there may be something for you to uncover.
Anxiety is a really interesting space. It's a fascinating space. And from my experience of working with people with anxiety, there's a future pacing to anxiety. And if there's a sensation that comes up and your psyche is, I want to be done with this, then anxiety can come online because you're future pacing. And so that future pacing, if you're working with somebody that can get you to slow down and get back into what's going on and ask you, what are you experiencing? I just want this to be over. I just want this to be over. What would happen if it was over? And then you get back into that space. There may be something in your unconscious mind that's still future pacing with that particular substance that you may be bypassing. I don't know, but this is something that I've seen, and I've worked with people in that space. Is there a bypassing going on? Can I hold space for that bypassing? And do you really want to dive into that space, or do you want to actually bypass it? And this is just something that comes up all the time with people. Every time I have mushrooms, I have this anxiety. Every time, I just don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel that. Okay, cool. What do you want to feel? I want to feel something different, and we move into a different space. Does that make sense? Cool. I just wanted to bring that. Anxiety is fascinating.
Accurate.
Yeah, every time I do mushrooms, like the first, I would say 45 minutes, I'm like, I have anxiety. And then I feel like mushrooms has taught me so much around letting go of control and allowing the unknowns, because that's where the anxiety is coming from for me, is I don't know what's going to happen. What am I going to see? Is God going to show up? Are angels going to come? All those things. And so it's taught me so much around real life. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to be around the corner. We don't know when we leave here what's going to happen. And so just allowing the beingness of the present moment. And so I don't always think anxiety is like a warning. Sometimes it's maybe we just need to surrender a little bit deeper to ourselves and to the journey. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you for having us. Thank you all for sharing.
Let's give it up for our guests. Thank you guys so much for being raw and emotional and real, and yeah.
Integration is not optional.